Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another Workflow Wednesday. If you're new to my channel or my video content, I am Fusion Phil. I work at JitCAD Cam, and we are an Autodesk reseller that sells, supports, and implements plus customization of Fusion 360 for your company and your needs. That being said, this week we're going to go ahead and go over a video that you guys loved a bunch last time. I made a post-processor edit video showing you guys how to make minor post-processor changes to spit out G-code that allows you to run your machine shop more efficiently and make that code so that you don't have to make edits. Now, this week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover how to add more information to your post to make your operator's life easier, or things that you could do that you won't need setup sheets any longer for. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this and see how it's done. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to show you guys how to actually dump out a parameter list so that you know exactly what you can pull from Fusion 360. I like to call this the cheat sheet of the actual post-processor edits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, I'm going to go into post-process. I'm going to go ahead and select a post from my library, and we're just going to go straight to the Fusion library. Now, I always get a chuckle out of this every time I go in here. And for those of you guys that are out there that are actual software programmers, know this stuff inside and out, I do not believe I'm an expert. I can fumble my way through it. There's times where even I need help. Shout out to Autodesk for being there. George Roberts specifically has helped me a ton with this. But something about the word dumper always makes me laugh. So what we want to do is we actually want to grab that actual post, and I'm going to just move mine over to the cloud. I would recommend for most of you, though, if you're doing this, move it over to your local library. Keep in mind, this post does update with Fusion, just like any post processor. So you wouldn't want to use an old version of this post. Always grab the latest and greatest. I'm going to throw it in the cloud because that tends to be the place where I wipe my stuff out after videos like this. So as you can see, I'm going to put all my stuff in my downloads folder. Maybe you create a temporary folder to put all of your trial and errors in. But all we're looking to do is actually just to generate the parameter list out of Fusion. Now, the cool thing about this parameter list is you can pull any piece of information you like. As you can see, we have things like dates and times, we have stock sizes, and for those of you that have watched my video and started asking me, you can even pull things like gauge length if you can spell it correctly. Thankfully, there's Google for guys like me that are dyslexic. But as you can see, you can actually now extract the gauge length from the tool setup page. I won't be covering this in this video, but if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. Now, let's go back into Fusion. So we got our cheat sheet. We now know what information we can pull. Let's go back to Fusion and let's grab our post processor. So again, as I'm going to go in and post, this time we're going to swap out. I'm going to go to the Fusion library, and I am just going to grab a standard Haas post. Maybe we'll use Fanuc today. It's been a while since I've picked on a Fanuc post. As you can see here, I have just nothing more than the standard Fanuc post. I'm actually going to copy this over to my local library. I would recommend, if you guys are going to work on a post you've already done stuff to, make a copy of that post so that you're not interfering with something that's already working. The worst thing that happens is you make a bunch of edits to something, you crash the post, and you've lost your reference point from before. So I'm going to grab that Fanuc post. We're going to go ahead and hit the pencil to edit. And now you can see I have my post processor pulled up. For anybody and everybody out there now questioning why mine is all beautiful and color coded, you either have an error message up at the top that says you need to enable it, or you have failed to watch my other video, and I recommend you watch that one first. But you need to install the Autodesk post processor utility so that you can do fancy things like going down here to the CNC selection and just saying nothing more than let's create a facing debug program so that we can make changes in real time without having to go back and post and come back and forth a million times, right? So now that I have the debug file pulled up, I had a request from my customer. I'm not going to mention any names, Wes over at Dozer Machine. He wanted me to add things like, hey, I would love to see my stock size and my work offset right here in the G code, right? I have a lovely tool list. Now, if I could add more to that tool list, which again, we now have the cheat sheet, right, guys? So we could actually add more information about the tool into our tool table. Why not add our work offset, our stock size, our stock type, all right here in our post, right? Or when was this posted out so that we know date and time, latest and greatest. So I'm going to start with date and time because it tends to be the easiest, and then we can stack up complexity from there. So we're going to go back into our Fanic post. With the actual installed post utility, this is actually really easy to do. We could just double click on this comment line. And as you're going to see, is it's going to take us to what's called write program header. Now, if it doesn't take you to write program header, if you click it again, it's probably going to jump you through Fusion. So every time you double click, it's going to jump to another section of this code, eventually ending up with write program header. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight and hit Control F, allowing me to search for what is considered the function of write program header. So the function is to do something, right? So when it sees write program header, this is what it's doing inside of that program header. Again, you don't have to be an expert in coding. In no way, shape, or form am I an expert in coding. However, we can start to understand the process of what's happening. So we have some variables here. One, we're not using machine configuration, so we're not populating any machine configuration. As you're going to see here, this is just the lingo to write out that information based on real time. Now, if we go down a little bit further, we have dump tool information. This is going to write all of our tools. As you can imagine, this is our tool table that is populating right below that. So the cool thing is if we wanted to test something real quick, I could come in here and I could actually add my own little segment of code. And to start this as simple as possible, what we're going to do is we're going to writeComment, and I'm going to throw my brackets, and then I'm going to throw a set of, can't remember the name of that, apostrophes. And then what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go ahead and just put test 1, 2, 3. Now I do need to put an end of block on this, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And what you're going to see is we have now populated nothing more than a comment, and that comment is test 1, 2, 3. So we have took in nothing more than a hard statement, as I'm going to say, and placed it into our G code. Now it is in brackets, as you can see here, so that your machine does not recognize those brackets. It doesn't see it as a normal line of code. If I was to change writeComment to write block, as you're going to see upon hitting save, it will now give it an end number, and it will be hard coded in there as if it is a line of G code, right? So this is something to pay attention to. We don't want that to be actually recognized by the machine. So we're going to actually keep that as a comment. And as you're seeing, a lot of this stuff is self-populated once you start to type it. So all you have to do is hit enter. Again, I'm going to hit save again, causing that regeneration. So now that we've got a line of code, right? So we've actually added a small block of code to our actual G code, and we have it where we want it, right? I want this at the header. I want it to be some of the first information my team members see. Obviously, it's up to you. Do you want tools first, or do you want stock size first? It's all going to come down to something that you guys are going to want. Now, let's take this one step further, right? So what I want to do this time around is I actually am going to scroll up here to the top, is I would like to extract the stock. And as you're seeing, these are very generic values. Keep in mind, when I posted out of Fusion, I posted it in document units, which is inch, which is why this guy is all wrote out in inch. And as you're going to see in a second, everything inside of this post is going to be in millimeters. Now, there is a setting you can change for the post utility tool to do inch, do millimeters, back and forth. Just know the math and everything that we do moving forward doesn't really matter. The numbers are all going to be straightforward. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to highlight the word stock. Granted, it is just one word, all lowercase. And we're going to go back to the Fanic post. So right here at the write program header, we have some variables. So what we need to do is we need to define a variable, right? And that variable is going to be, I'm going to call it stock size. And then we're going to go ahead and hit equals. And then this is the thing we need to tell Fusion is we need to tell it to go get a parameter, right? So get global parameter. And then what I need to do is I need to throw up my brackets, and then I need to throw up my apostrophes. And then what I'm going to paste in here is that word stock. And then I'm going to hit this again with another end of block at the end. And we're going to go ahead and hit enter to create a gap. Now, what you're going to notice is if we look at our other variables, they're in a lighter blue versus a darker blue. The reason for that is this is actually telling us that variable is yet to be used. So a good way to think about this is we need to give, if you remember back in X class or in math class when you always had X and Y and X plus Y equals and all that stuff, this is my X, right? So what we've now defined, this is my X more or less for what we are going to do. And that X is going to go get information. So what I need to do is down here where we wrote our comment is I'm actually going to take out our apostrophes with that word test. And I'm going to type in stock. And as you're seeing is I'm now realizing I said stock is not stock size. So we can fix that here in a moment, but it's always funny when you screw up, it feels like you remember twice as bad, right? I tell my customers, fail as fast as you can so you can learn how to do it right even quicker. But we're going to go ahead and hit save. And as you're going to see now is it has populated basically what is considered an upper and lower threshold based on where my work coordinate system is. So the thing here is you're seeing in X, we have -50, and then we have, again, in X over here, +50. So my stock size is 100. That being said, is my work offset is considered at 0. So we're +50 and we're -50. Same thing with our y-axis. We're +25, -25. Again, so our stock is 100 by 50, and then it is 51 tall, which means our z height is 0, meaning our work offset is at the top of our part. So the cool thing is this first section is your lower, your second section is your upper. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to now make some more changes, right? So first change I'm going to make is I'm going to fix this typo before I get some nasty comments down below from all of you about how I don't know what my punctuation is. If I knew what punctuation was, I probably wouldn't have been good at math. I wouldn't have been a machinist nowadays. So let's fix those two things real quick and hit save. So as you can see now, we're populating that line. We've just fixed our variable callout, and we fixed where that variable is getting called out. But now we can kind of duplicate what we've done, and we can take this a whole nother step further, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy the variable line, and we're just going to go ahead and hit enter, and we're going to hit paste. And now what I'm going to do is this time round, I'm going to go back, and we have what's called stock type, right? So again, it's up to you guys how you go about this. We're going to go ahead and plug that into that field there. And then I'm going to change my variable to stock type. And then down below, again, we're just going to take that comment and we could go ahead and hit enter. And this is now going to be stock type followed by save. So as you can see here, we went ahead and ran into a pretty substantial error. What it's saying is parameter does not exist. So you're going to run into this a couple times where Fusion may or may not be able to extract something in the debugger. So that being said, in this case, is the debugger really isn't giving us information. It just says custom here. In that case, is the way we're defining this and the way we're setting this up, you may not be able to extract everything. Now, excuse me there. I like to go back and check on a few more things. One, did I make a typo somewhere? Did I miss a block? I did not. So as you can see, stock type in this case cannot be extracted in this current format. So we may be able to change this to a get parameter, hit save. Again, parameter does not exist. So just keep in mind, there is going to be some parameters that Autodesk is going to be adding and fixing so that you can extract this stuff in real time. As well, there's going to be certain things that need to be defined out of Fusion when you post that code out. So for the sake of what we're doing here, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave this comment here, and I'm going to simply enough put my brackets around it so that it puts it in place as a word. And this is more or less just going to be a placeholder. So 1989 is our error line. So if we go ahead and go to our line 1989, this guy right here, I'm going to go ahead and just put a double backslash in front of it so that it does not populate the actual variable, but it does populate the word that we have typed. So now that we've done another item, let's get a little more complex here. So what I would like to do is, as you can see, this is kind of giving us our origin location of our WCS, and then it's doing all of the math almost as if it was absolute values, right? That's not going to be something that a customer, or not a customer, but an operator is going to want to see, right? They're not going to want to have to do the math to figure out the stock size. They're going to want to say nothing more than stock in X is 100, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back down and we're going to repeat kind of what we've done. So this time I'm going to type it out very quickly. So we're going to say variable lowerx equals, and this is getGlobalParameter. And then now I do know these off the top of my head for the most part. So we're going to go ahead and add our double set of brackets here. And we're going to go with we're going to go with lower dash X. Again, we need to end this with the end of block. I am going to jump back over to my dump file and make sure. So in this case, I actually lied to you guys. It's stock-lowerx. So again, this is why we keep our cheat sheet up, to be able to populate this information on our own. So we go ahead and hit save. As you're going to see, nothing has changed. And we need to now create what we want to write. Again, we could do our writeComment. In this case, I'm going to rinse and reuse this comment right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and plug in stocksize, again, hitting save. And as you can see, our stock size was the wrong call out. So we're going to go back. Again, the best of us, we always make bad mistakes when we're getting into this. So we actually want lowerx, populating just the -50. Now, let's say I wanted to do some math on this, right? So the cool thing is now that we have the lower, we can, again, copy and paste and create our upper, right? So again, we're going to go back. We're going to say upperx. Again, we know this is now going to be upper. And down below, what I'm going to do is lower minus upper x. And we're going to hit save. And as you're going to see, we now got a -100. Now, some of you are going to ask me, how did we get a -100? Well, we got a -100 because -50 minus 50, right? A negative minus a negative here, in this case, is taking us even further. So we're at -100. So something we need to change is we actually need to go in and we need to actually do upper minus lower. So again, as I'm going to delete and we're going to go back, we're going to say upper minus lower, upper x minus lower x, and hit save. And as you can see here, we now have a solid 100 number. So you could rinse and repeat this a few more times if you guys want, or you can kind of create, again, a whole nother way to call this out. So this is kind of the fun of getting into like a little more complex stock sizing, right? So again, as we could actually add another line, this is going to be variable stockl, right? Because we want stock length equals, and then we're going to actually now say upper x minus lower x. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and throw this in some brackets. And once again, we're going to end this with an end of block. So what I'm doing is I'm now moving the equation out of the comment field up to its own variable line. Again, is now if I come down below and I just say stockl and hit save, what you're going to notice is I still get the same dimension based off what's going on. One other thing I could do here is I could throw a comma and I could add another paste of stockl. Oh, sorry. We'll just type it out and I can hit save. So what you're seeing is by doing that comma and adding a second stockl, nothing has actually changed. The reason for that is you may need to, again, add some brackets inside of here to populate that information. So as you can see, sometimes you're going to get to a point where you cause problems with what you're trying to do, and it's starting to get a little more complex each and every time. So let's fix that, right? So what you've seen me do is I'm just using the stock length twice because I want to populate stock length twice. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back to our statement of what we have. Again, based off what you guys want to do, it's kind of easy to stack this up. I would like to put a comma between these two numbers. So again, we're going to go ahead and add our brackets around that comma. But now if we hit save, we get this error. Again, still having issues to populate what we want. But if we look up just a hair, what you're going to notice a lot of times is we have a plus sign. And that plus sign indicates kind of add this to what is going on. So by adding a plus before and after and hitting save, what you're noticing is we now have 100, 100. Now, obviously, I don't want stock length plus stock length, right? Or I may want to say, again, we're going to add our bracket in, and we're going to say stock length bracket plus stockl, stockl. But as you're able to see here is we can actually use kind of a format of generating each kind of space as we need on its own. So as I get more and more complex here, you can see I now have stock length space 100. Again, we did a comma 100, so we have a secondary, or we could say something like stock size. We're going to go ahead and hit save. Now it's going to say stock size 100, 100. So let's go ahead and kind of now repeat everything we've done. I apologize for a lot of you out there. This video is probably getting a little long-winded for most of you, but all we need to do is we really just need to take this entire block of variables. We're going to copy, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this down below. This is now stock upper Y. We have now stock lower Y, stock upper Y. We're going to go ahead and change lower X, lower Y. We're going to go ahead and do stock width, stock W. Again, we need to change X and Y here, or X to Y here. And then down below, we're actually going to do stock W, right? So again, we've now populated an entire second chunk. Instead of using X, we're now using Y. We're now doing stock length and stock width. So as soon as I hit save here, what you'll notice is we now have our stock size of 100, 50, right? So super neat thing that you guys can, again, we could do this one more time, right? So I am going to go ahead and steal this plus all the way out to stock W. We're going to plug that in, and now I already know what my variable is going to be at the end of the day, and this is going to be stock thickness, maybe, stock depth. It's really up to you. I'm going to go ahead and go stock T, in my opinion. Again, taking those 3 lines of variables, we're going to go ahead and copy and paste. And once again, we're going to change Y's to Z. We're going to have our lower Z here, upper Z here. We want stock thickness. And again, Z and Z. So again, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And now you're seeing that line call out stock size 150, 51, right? So this is 100 by 50 by 51. Now, if we look at the math from the line above, again, 50 and 50 is 100, 25 and 25 is 50, 51 and 0 is 51. So again, this is very relatively easy for all of you to add once you get the basis of like 1 or 2 little bits of code as we're pushing and pulling back and forth. So again, now that we've done more of this, one thing I may not need is we don't actually need that stock size generically wrote out, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and double backslash to get rid of it. And now we're populating stock size right here. Now, one thing I'm going to do for all of you is down below in the description, I am going to actually post all of this information that we've wrote here so that you can copy and post it, hopefully into the right location in your post so that you don't have to call me to fix it. However, if you need me to help you, feel free to reach out, guys. I'm always happy to help you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up right now for part 1, as we are going to do part 2 next week, where we do a nomenclature based on top, front, left, right type scenarios on where our work offset is on the model versus the stock. That being said, you're going to want to go ahead and subscribe to this channel so you get notifications on when we release that video. As well, give this video a like, add a comment down below if you like content like this. And as always, have a great rest of your day.